I'd like to welcome all of you, as well as some of our dignitaries with us today. Representing Governor Hochul, I have Tracy DeGianova and several of our members of the county and city government. I appreciate their participation today. At this time, I'd like to call Father Jim Enright to the podium for the invocation.
Let us pray. Lord, we gather together today to remember those who have given so much that we can stand here as free men. We ask for blessings on them and on the family. May all who have served our country always remember, never forgotten, all that they have done. Amen.
At this time, I'd like to have us observe a moment of silence. For those who are able, please remain standing through the moment of silence. This will reflect our appreciation for those who weren't able to be here today. Thank you. Detail, please return the colors to full staff.
Order, park, parade, press.
You may be seated. Some of you may wonder why the return of the colors to full staff. I've been asked to explain the difference between Memorial Day and Veterans Day today. Today is Veterans Day, and it's important that we detail what each of the two days are and why we celebrate them. Memorial Day and Veterans Day are both patriotic holidays honoring the military, but there's a significant difference between the two aside from when they land on the calendar. Memorial Day, which falls on the last Monday in May, honors the men and women who died while serving in the military. This solemn occasion is a time to reflect on these American patriots who made the ultimate sacrifice while protecting and defending the country they deeply loved. Veterans Day, observed every November 11th, recognizes all who have served in the armed forces. You may wonder, what is the proper way to acknowledge each holiday? On Memorial Day, you can honor the fallen by attending memorial services within your community, or laying flowers and planting flags on graves at your local veterans cemetery. Veterans Day is an opportunity to do the same, but is also an appropriate time to show your appreciation to veteran friends and family. You can also recognize Veterans Day by flying the American flag outside your home, visiting or volunteering at a veteran facility, attending a local event, and of course, thanking veterans and their families for their service. You do not have to wait for a national holiday to show your gratitude to service members. Any day is a good day to support veterans, either through a charity or giving a heartfelt thank you to those who've served. At this time, I'd like to begin calling our guest speakers to the podium. Our very first speaker, New York State Congressman John Katko, and Senate Representative Mr. Tom Hagen.
Hello everyone, Congressman Katko regrets that he can't be here today, but he just wanted to send a message thanking all the men and women who have served in our armed forces. So on behalf of Congressman Katko, thank you to all who have served, and please, to all who haven't, make it a point to thank someone who served today. Thank you.
New York State Senator Pamela Helmig regrets she's not able to be here today, but certainly sends her well wishes and thanks to all of our veterans and their families. Next, I'd like to call to the podium our New York State Assemblyman, Mr. John Lamondes.
Thank you, everyone. It's fitting today that it's raining. It reminds us that defense of the nation doesn't stop when it's cold, when it's hot, when it's raining, when you're freezing, when you're miserable, when you're hungry, when you're under extreme stress. We keep going, and we keep going and keep going. Not only for our units and our buddies next to us on each side at that time, but for our next generation so that our nation can preserve itself. This is perhaps one of our best and most important holidays that we commemorate. I want to say thank you to Mayor Quill and all the other dignitaries and officials here, and especially the VFW and American Legion, their auxiliaries, and all the volunteers that helped put this function together and that are here standing with us in the rain on this day. Last year I spoke specifically about service. This year I'm going to bring it much more local. I want to talk mostly about Cayuga County's commitment to our nation. From the very beginning, this county was settled by veterans of the American Revolution, followed by Richardson's Rifle Corps in the War of 1812, followed by a huge contribution to the Civil War and its cause and the preservation of our nation, and perhaps the most terrible struggle that we've had so far. 1,400 men were drafted and served in World War I from Cayuga County alone. World War II saw many Cayuga County men and women serve as well. I want to call out Major Lindsay Red Grove, who became a local hero as a fighter ace, the first in Cayuga County's history. The 108th Infantry Division served in the Pacific Theater. The 42nd Infantry Division helped to liberate the Dachau concentration camp. That is particularly important, although you would not know it, I never discuss it. My father from Onondaga County's unit participated in one of the satellite liberation camps of Dachau called Landsberg. And he never spoke of this the rest of his life. The 299th Combat Engineers served at Normandy on D-Day from right here, our very own Cayuga County. And of course, more Cayuga County residents served in Korea and Vietnam, and the Congressional Medal of Honor recipient Robert Stryker, who himself sacrificed himself by putting himself on a grenade in the Vietnam War. Right now, in addition to those of us here, there are about 5,000 living veterans in our county here, right here, Cayuga County. That's a huge number of veterans. What that translates to is a huge contribution to keeping this country together despite all of our challenges, troubles, and problems along the way. I am personally so honored to be among you, to be one of you, to be with you. That it means the world to me to know that it's a continuum of time of service from one generation to the next. And as I look at you, I recognize people who have served in wars before I was born, and people who have served with me in Iraq and Afghanistan, and probably some of the kids here who will serve in conflicts that are yet to be named. And I want to simply end with thank you all for your service, and most importantly, thank you to the families who sometimes have the hardest part of this contribution to our national service. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. As you follow along your program, you'll be quick to recognize that Assemblyman Lamondes is a retired colonel of the U.S. Army. The next person to approach the podium, I'd like to call Legislative Chair David Gould, also a fellow veteran.
Around. Oh. Right.
I certainly will be brief. I'm not going to, some of that history that John gave, I've lived there my whole life. I didn't know some of that. I'm sure a lot of us did. But on behalf of the legislature, and I know Kristen Clarko's here, I don't know if there's any other legislators out there, I just want to read this proclamation. It'll be short because I didn't know what the weather was going to be, so I guess I was right on that. Whereas in our democratic society is an important civic responsibility and a great honor for any governmental body to grant public recognition, admiration, and gratitude to these very citizens who have helped build this community and influence the future of its citizens. And whereas the contributions and sacrifices of the people who served in the armed forces have been vital in maintaining our freedoms and way of life, and whereas our veterans are brave and selfless individuals who, when duty called, willingly put themselves in harm's way to defend the lives and liberty of others. And whereas on this day and every day, we honor the tens of millions of Americans who have served in the armed forces of the United States during the past century. And whereas hundreds of thousands of Americans have given their lives while serving in the armed forces during the past century, and whereas Cayuga County, as John said, is the home of over 5,000 veterans and their families, and whereas we honor our veterans for their abiding patriotism and enduring devotion to the ideals of which the United States is founded, and they never fail to inspire us. Now therefore it be resolved that I, Dave Gould, Chairman of the Cayuga County Legislature, and my fellow legislators do proclaim our gratitude and urge the residents of our county to join with us in recognition of our veterans. I will be giving this to Kevin Swab to put in the VA's office here in the city. And just on behalf, again, of the legislature, I want to thank all of you for serving. I'm just honored to be a veteran. I know when I got went in the service in '67, I'm saying, what am I doing? And it was the best choice I ever made. So thank all of you very much, and congratulations, and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our next individual that will step to the podium, we had a brief conversation prior to the event today. He asked me if I was going to read his bio. We agreed that because it's written, there'd be no need for me to do that. And it's raining, you're right. I believe it more reflects the humility that the gentleman pushes forward. I say gentleman because he truly is. He's served Cayuga County well as the Veterans Representative. We're thankful to have him. And if you'll take the time to read his bio in the program, you'll come to appreciate what he has to offer as much as I do. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podium retired Major Kevin Swab of the Army and the National Guard from 1987 to 2011 and currently serving Cayuga County.
All right, good morning, everyone. I am truly honored to be here. And if you've been around Cayuga County a while, back in 2011, I was here. I think it was 2010, 11. You lose track of time as you get older, right? I was also the speaker as I was retiring from the Army. But I'm truly honored to be here and being addressed to you today. I want to thank the City of Auburn for faithfully hosting this event every year, and especially the SNK Post, who provides the Honor Guard and the firing team back there. Also, I'm glad someone mentioned the Memorial Day ceremony, because every Memorial Day at this park, usually up on the street, there is a wreath laying to honor those who have fallen during their service to this country. I want to reiterate that point, because a lot of times we get focused on downtown. But please come down here after the parade or follow the end of the parade for the ceremony that honors the fallen here at this park on Memorial Day. It's well worth taking a few minutes to pay homage to them. A few administrative notes. After the ceremony, we'll be having an information session over at the YMCA. So where are my people who were there this morning? Was it worth going to?
Yes.
Thank you. There's a few out there. I know there's a few out there. It's warm over at the Y. Obviously, it's going to be dry. We want to talk about veteran benefits and what veterans are eligible for, could be eligible for. And we have food. We have some snacks. If you have children, grandchildren, we have some candy bars that were donated, and we have some Girl Scout cookies that were donated that you can have and take with you. Please come over to the YMCA after. It's only going to take an hour or so, but I think everyone will learn something, so I really appreciate for that. The YMCA is also raffling off a 3-month membership, and they offer a 10% discount to veterans year-round. The reason I want to do that is in my time as the Director of Veteran Services, I have found that there's lack of information in some cases or misinformation, and especially with the PACT Act being passed this year, I'm trying to get information out to veterans and their families so that everybody understands what people could be eligible for. And so it's purely as to help. So please, you can take an hour. Even if you aren't a veteran, but you know veterans, please come over and learn something. I want to say this because I know not everyone is as joyful as we'd like to be on Veterans Day. But if you think, or if you know someone who has expressed ideas of suicide, that is one of our emphasis is prevent veteran suicide. The new suicide hotline is 988. It's very simple. You don't have to remember that old long number. It's 988. And if somebody presses 1, they get a counselor that is trained in working with veterans. So please understand that if you know a veteran in crisis. There's also a hotline for veterans who are homeless or in danger of becoming homeless. You can research that. I'm not going to read it because I don't want you to have to write it down. But you can look that up very quickly, the Veteran Homeless Hotline. And that will bring resources to bear to help veterans who are in crisis in that way. For everyone, if you need help, seek it out. I have learned in my 11 months, I've learned a lot in the last 11 months, it's gone by very fast, that there are a lot of resources to help veterans. And sometimes the VA gets a bad rap, but there's a lot of programs, and that's what our agency does, is we help veterans get connected to resources that will help them live better lives. And so we really encourage you to do that. The term lead by example is used widely in all military services, and I think it's made its way into general use. As veterans, we should be leaders using our experiences, both good and bad, to help others live better. So what example are we leading by? For myself, the first standard I look to is Jesus. I figure I can't go wrong with that. So that's where I start. But on a more practical level, I look at people like my first platoon sergeant, a man named Pat Abrams. He's not from this area, he lives in the Capital District. Pat is a Vietnam veteran who had come into the National Guard after Vietnam to serve and to finish out 20 years of service when I first started back in the late 80s. He was also a lieutenant on his local police force. So I went active duty, he stayed in the Guard, he finished his retirement, and he was a lieutenant on his local police force. And then 9/11 hit. And he re-enlisted. He felt so compelled to serve his country after 9/11 that he re-enlisted. He took a reduction from E8, Master Sergeant, down to Staff Sergeant so that he could come back into the National Guard and serve his country. He ended up, and he could have come back as an E7, a Sergeant First Class, but he wanted to be with infantry unit. He ended up being mobilized and he deployed with the 2nd of the 108, which is the legacy unit of the 108 Infantry, to Iraq, and he was wounded while he was in Iraq. And I talked to him yesterday, and I said, you are just an example that I want people to know about. And that's why I tell his story. The story of continued service and dedication to this country. Another veteran that I hold up as an example is Gary Bykirk. Some of you may know him. He's a Medal of Honor winner, and they just published a book last year before he passed, Blaze of Light. I highly recommend it. And he tells the story. He became a Special Forces medic, and he was wounded in an attack on his compound. He had a Special Forces team. And knowing that others were in worse shape than he was, he asked his Vietnamese bodyguard, who was 15 years old, to kind of drag him around to help other people while under fire and still fighting off the enemy. Upon returning from the States, at one point he was going to college, he was going to a seminary, but he couldn't handle being around people that much, and he would go live in a cave at night. He worked through that, but he credits God with helping him through that process, but he also got help to work through it. And then they tracked him down, and he was awarded the Medal of Honor. Well, the Medal of Honor didn't fix his problems, and he says in the book that the Medal of Honor sat for 8 years before he took it out again. My point there is we have veterans who suffer from post-traumatic stress and other issues. There is help out there, and if you need it, please go get it. Later in life, he met a woman. Actually, she kind of stalked him, and they got together, and after a few months they got married, and they stayed married for years afterwards. And he reflects very well on that in his book. Well, he became a guidance counselor, school counselor out in the Rochester area. And his students affectionately referred to him as Mr. B. I got to meet him a couple times. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But I've been impressed by the example set by many people I have run into. And I can't name all of them. There's a few that I want to point out. Del Jenner. Did Del make it today? I know he's usually at these, but he's a busy guy. He volunteers with the American Legion and other organizations. Bob Geralaman is here. Bob is a Legion commander, also volunteers and helps out with veterans, and he drives a SCAT van. That's why I wanted the SCAT van here, because I want to show a demonstration of something that you can do to help, and that's what Bob does. So Bob, thank you for that. Jerry Scouten coordinates the DAV vans in the Auburn area. And this driver, John Christensen, who's a veteran, is here as well. He's one of the drivers. Again, an opportunity to volunteer and help in the community, and specifically help veterans. Nick Valenti, everybody knows Nick. Nick is awesome, and he was awarded recognition from state senator this year. And he does great things, and he's been a great help to me. As I said, there's more that I could list, but it's raining, so I can't. So some veterans become politicians. A few back there. And I guess that's okay if you're so inclined. That's a way that you can also serve if that's what you want to do. One example that I definitely want to recognize is a veteran named Lou Barbaglia. Lou happened to come in today. He's in the back in the black hat right there. And he lives in Onondaga County. But he stepped up to help his veteran friend from Cayuga County, who like a year or so ago, almost 2 years ago now, had a stroke. And he was able to recover. But he returned home and he had personal issues, he had medical issues, and the house he lived in was just having all kinds of issues. And Lou stepped up to help out this veteran. And he helped him apply for benefits. And there's another woman here, Lorraine, who helped with the paperwork. And I just can't say enough about you guys. And I think Lou would agree that it hasn't been easy, but it's well been worth it. So I want to give Lou a round of applause. And I'm very glad you were able to make it today. If I hadn't told that story, not many people would know about it. So I want you to tell us some of those stories. We work in 95 Genesee Street. Send us an email, send us a text. It's on our website. About veterans we want to recognize who are going above and beyond in service to their community. I want people to know about veterans who are doing things as much as we know about Medal of Honor winners. And I know there are unsung heroes out there that we need to recognize. Because ultimately, it's not government who will make our communities greater. It is we the people. Sometimes we have to get our eyes off what's going on in Washington, Albany, City Hall, and even the county office building right here, and fix our eyes on hearts and helping our neighbors, like in the biblical story of the Good Samaritan, where he helped someone he should have hated that others had left to die. Now, I'm not saying that government is bad. There are many programs that we should use to help our neighbors, including our VA benefits, Social Security, etc. The Office for the Aging here in Q County has been a great help as we've been helping veterans as well. We pay taxes, so we might as well use the programs when they're needed. I also believe that we can lead by example by volunteering with organizations like the DAV and the SCAT Band, who are always looking for drivers. If you're generally healthy and you have some extra time, you could really use it. And many hands make light works in a lot of different organizations. Here at Q County, we also have the Vet Van that's up there. That is a service that the county provides to give rides to medical appointments at the VA Medical Center. We have a schedule, you can check it out. We do Monday through Thursday. We go North County, South County, and if you're on your off day, if you meet us here in Auburn at the clinic, we'll take you anytime you want. But we have part-time drivers, and Cliff is up there. He's nursing a leg injury, but he's still helping us out. We rotate those positions. So if you drive for DAV, and you potentially could drive for us in the future in a paid position, as long as you're willing to wake up early in the morning. That's the challenge with the job. Way early in the morning. These guys are up at 5, picking people up at 6 to be at appointments in Syracuse at 8. So really appreciate what those guys do, our drivers. We want to point them out. But it is an opportunity if you want to work with that as well. The Office for the Aging, as I mentioned, is always looking for volunteers to help with meal delivery and services to our elderly. So that's a way to serve. If you don't have a lot of time, you could do something as simple as being a poll worker once a year. We're always looking for poll work. We need people to volunteer for these positions. You can join your Legion or VFW and participate in their activities. Unfortunately, the local DAV chapter disbanded this year due to lack of membership. But thankfully, the drivers are coordinated with a coordination with the Syracuse DAV. These organizations we need to support. The Duck Derby, everybody enjoyed the Duck Derby, right? That wasn't able to be conducted today because the Kiwanis couldn't get enough help. We can't let these organizations die that are woven into the fabric of our society and part of what makes America, America. I currently volunteer with my church, and I'm in an organization called the New York Guard. Most of you probably don't know what that is, and it gets confused with the National Guard a lot. But we are a volunteer organization that helps out during times of emergency within the state. And I was happily retired at home when I got a call asking if I wanted to come back and help out with the COVID reaction mission. And I was like, not really, but it's hard to say no when you served most of your life. And so I did a quick accession into the New York Guard, and I spent 15 months on state active duty with the New York Guard, helping out with vaccinations, test sites, and other things like that. It's so important if you have the time, energy to help keep these organizations going, because ultimately they help the fabric of our society. And I understand that not everyone is a place to help. And as I said at the beginning, if you need some help yourself, seek it out. And that is how Lou came to us, because his friend finally reached out and said, I need some help. We also had a veteran who was being foreclosed on for not paying his property taxes. This veteran could have been saved thousands of dollars over the years with a veteran tax exemption he never knew about. Fortunately, his neighbor stepped up, bought the property, and is allowing the veteran to live in that property. And that's the kind of benefit I want to talk to if you come over to the YMCA, if you're not familiar with it or you're not clear about it. I want to ensure that you understand what the benefit is. Now, I'm going to get a little preachy here, but I've seen a few things that I just want to highlight. A couple of pieces of advice based on my observations in the last 11 months and some life experience is if you smoke, try to stop. There are so many people out there who are having strokes and other complications that are associated with smoking. The VA has quit smoking programs. I know the social services has some. It's just something that is not good for you, and you should try within your capability to try to do that. My mother had a stroke this past year, and it's just a debilitating thing that you don't want to have to deal with if you can in any way prevent it. This one's going to hit a nerve, I know it is. If you drink alcohol, just drink less. I've seen so many people, not just veterans, who are living a life that is just clouded by their alcohol consumption. But then I've seen veterans who have recovered from that addiction, who are living a much better life, and they acknowledge that they're living a better life. I'm not saying you have to stop. Maybe drink a little less. Think about that. Because ultimately, we care about how everyone lives, and it's going to make our communities better if we're stronger. We support Nick's Ride. If you know a veteran who's having addiction issues, Nick's Ride right here in Auburn is helping everyone with addiction issues. And we support them, and we're trying to get a veterans community going over there as well for those veterans who are struggling with addiction issues. And then lastly, take a walk every once in a while. When you go to Wegmans, park in the far parking lot. Just get a little bit of exercise. It has been shown to help you extend your life and have a better life. Those are my points of advice. I'll stop preaching. As I said, the Medal of Honor didn't cure Gary Bikert's problems. He was able to turn his life around and then help others, including young people that he wanted to pass on his wisdom to. Sometimes us older people, and I know many of you are older than I am, we complain about this younger generation. Well, let's set the example for this younger generation on service and how to live a good life. Because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for an example to follow. Let's be that example. I had the honor of meeting Gary a couple times and listened to him speak, and he often focused his talk around this phrase, which is also highlighted in his book, Blaze of Light. To really live, you must almost die. To those who fought for it, life has a meaning the protected will never know. He took this from his experience in Vietnam, but also from his life after living in the cave, where he knew he just could not live for himself. He decided to go into the world and use his experience, and then the platform the Medal of Honor had given him to help and inspire others to live a better life. These are examples that inspire me. Every day I go to work in the Veteran Service Agency here in Cuyahoga County. Our collective goal should be to strengthen the veteran community, which will then strengthen our families and our communities. And this is what we are working on every day. And I hope you join us in this endeavor, whatever skills and energy you have to contribute. Thank you for the honor of your time, and I pray that God will bless you, this great nation, that we have a good fortune of living in. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Major. At this time, I take great pleasure in bringing to the podium another fellow veteran, our current mayor, Michael D. Quill.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
My fellow veterans, welcome home.
Thank you.
Many of you have waited a long time to be officially told welcome home. Well, it's happening today. Secondly, the only thing keeping you from staying dry is me talking for a long time. So I hope you have umbrellas. I'd like to introduce my co-workers, people I have the most respect in the world for. Councilor Jimmy Genentino, Councilor Terry Cuddy, Councilor Ginny Kent. I don't believe Councilor Luke Castro was here.
Where is it? Hiding.
He's got a driveway to do today, so he's not gonna. They are the best council I've ever worked with, and I thoroughly enjoy being with them. We're all wet now, as I said, so I do want to give an update to a point about the park, the pavers. Jenny Haynes, from the Office of Planning and Economic Development, and our city manager are working very hard to come up with grants, monies to replace these pavers. The pavers are not made, they don't make a paver that stands up to the weather. So Jeff is working on an idea of a wall somewhere along the back where the pavers will be placed there. I have enough knowledge not to talk about it, but I know we're working on it. So that'll be a large improvement for everyone. Over here to my left, I see Bob Drowman. Bob and I went to boot camp together. Thanks to me, Bob got through boot camp. That's far from the truth. It's wet. Said enough. Thank you for being here, and all my fellow veterans. Thank you. We love
Well, thank you. You've heard a lot from a lot of different people today. I think the message is very clear.
Your phone is ringing right now.
Thank you to those of you who've served, to those of you who continue to serve, and to those of you who will serve in the future, and your families. It was said it's not an individual effort. The support at home is certainly welcome and appreciated. Please rise for the rifle volley.
Detail, tank, hunt, hard, hard. Ready, hey, fire. Ready, hey, fire. Ready, hey, fire. Reset, arms. Hunter, arms. Hooray, press.
It's my pleasure to introduce this gentleman to do the benediction. Once again, Father Enright.
I might break a tradition. I'm known for being short. But today it's raining. And reminds us how short time is. So we just pause and ask the Lord to bless all our veterans. And when the time comes, may He bring them safely home. The home of eternal life. We ask this in Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Father. That concludes today's service. I ask that you go in peace, and may God continue to bless you all.
Detail dismissed.
Because of the